For more original stories, subscribe to Audio Tales. Now, let's begin this one. I never imagined the woman I loved could disappear overnight, taking with her everything we had built together. Our savings, our dreams, all gone in the blink of an eye. But what she forgot was one fatal detail, a detail that would turn the tables in ways neither of us could have predicted. This is not just a story about betrayal and loss. It's about secrets that cut deeper than any knife, about discovering the truth behind the masks we wear, and about how sometimes the people we think are enemies might actually be victims too. In the next few minutes, you'll hear a tale of heartbreak, deception, and a fight for redemption, told from the inside, through the eyes of a man forced to confront not only the woman who left him, but the shadows within himself. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, or wondered how far someone can fall before finding their way back, this story is for you. She left on a Thursday morning. I remember the light, how it fell sideways, through the blinds, slicing the kitchen tiles in soft golden shadows. The coffee was still warm when I found the note. No big goodbye, no tear-stained farewell, just 6 words scribbled in her handwriting, curved and cruel in its simplicity. I can't do this anymore, sorry. That was it. After 7 years of marriage, countless shared mornings and slow Sundays, after dreams whispered in the dark and plans written on napkins during takeout nights, she was gone. But that wasn't the worst part. No. The worst part came later, when I opened the drawer where we kept the savings, the envelope we'd both added to month by month, sometimes joking it was our escape fund. Funny, right? Turns out, only one of us escaped. It was empty. Every last bill. Gone. I stood there in the silence, the kind that roars in your ears when your life has just quietly collapsed. My hands shook, not with rage, not yet, but with something colder, a sate, kind of cold that seeps into your bones when you realize someone you trusted with your life just stole it from under you. I don't remember sitting down, just remember staring. The envelope flapped open like a wound. She took everything. Everything except one single, fatal detail. And that mistake, that oversight, would change everything. But before I get there, maybe you need to understand who she was, who we were. I met Laura in a strange kind of autumn, the kind where the leaves fall too early, as if the world is in a hurry to change seasons. She wore a worn-out red coat and carried a quiet kind of sadness, the kind you feel before. You understand, we met by accident. A small cafe, soft rain tapping on the glass, and 2 strangers who became something more in silence. Laura had a presence that made everything else feel like background noise. She wasn't loud. She wasn't flashy. She was the kind of woman who looked you in the eye and made you believe she saw parts of you even you hadn't named yet. And me, I was just a man trying to keep things together. I came from a tight-lipped childhood, one that taught you not to dream too much. I worked early, saved every coin like it could break. When she came into my life, it felt like things finally aligned. She used to laugh at my habits, how I alphabetized receipts, how I checked the gas 3 times before leaving. But back then, there was warmth in it. We made plans, talked about buying a small house, maybe getting a dog, and we started saving, bit by bit. At first, for safety, then for hope. But looking back, the cracks were there from the beginning. Small, subtle, like fractures in glass still holding. The world, but already giving way. She'd disappear for hours with no real explanation. Said she was visiting her sister, but came back smelling different, her mood like weather. Unpredictable, shifting. And me, I chose not to see. It was easier that way. Easier to believe in the beautiful version, in the love we'd built, than face the growing silence between us. I became an expert at ignoring what was right in front of me. But the truth has a cruel way of slipping in, even through the lies we tell ourselves. I remember one night, 3 months before everything happened. We were eating dinner in silence. She was pushing food around her plate, eyes far away, like her body was in the room but her soul was somewhere else entirely. Then she said, out of nowhere. Have you ever thought about starting over? Somewhere far from here? I thought it was just another of her escapist daydreams. We used to joke about that sometimes, dropping everything, moving to a place with ocean air and no clocks. But there was something different in her voice that night. Kind of urgency, a fear pretending to be hope. I should have asked more. I should have listened better. But at that time, I was still the man who believed in her. And that's why when she left, when she took everything, I didn't cry. I went quiet, and I started thinking. Because in that sudden stillness, in the echo of her absence, something didn't fit. Something was out of place. And that's when I saw it, the detail she forgot. A simple thing, but fatal. And that was where I'd begin. The thing about betrayal is, it rarely screams, it whispers, subtly, like a draft under a locked door you were sure was shut. And once you feel it, truly feel it, there's no going back. It rewrites everything, every memory, every laugh, every quiet night spent believing. In the days after she left, I didn't tell anyone, not friends, not family. There was a strange kind of shame in it, not because she was gone, but because I had let her in so deeply and hadn't seen what was growing in the dark. But the signs had been there. Now, they played in my mind like old film reels, brief, flickering, loaded with meanings I hadn't caught at the time. There was the time I found a second phone charger in her bag. Not hers. Not mine. She laughed it off, said it must have been her sister's. But I remember how tightly her fingers held the bag when I reached for it. There were the online purchases that didn't match anything in our house. She said they were gifts for friends. But I never saw anyone receive them. She changed passwords to things we used to share, said it was just good practice, and still, I swallowed it, all of it. Because I wanted her to be who I thought she was, and maybe that was my biggest mistake. Loving a version of her that never existed. But back to the detail, the one she forgot. See, months ago, she insisted we switch banks, said the new one had better rates, a sleek app, more modern. I was reluctant, but eventually gave in. We moved almost everything. Our emergency fund, our vacation savings, even part of my inheritance. Everything, except for one small account. An old joint account we had opened during our second year together, when we still believed the future was simple and bright. She must have forgotten about it. Or maybe she thought I had. But I hadn't. And that old account? It wasn't much, just over $1,000. But it came with something far more valuable, a notification setting that I had activated and she never knew about. Every time she used our new card, every time she transferred money, copy of the transaction was quietly emailed to that old inbox I rarely checked. And when I opened it, the picture that formed was clearer than anything she'd ever told me. It wasn't just that she took the money, it was where it went. And who. It went to the same names, over and over, the same hotel, the same location. She wasn't running away alone, she had help. And suddenly, the pain shifted. It stopped being raw grief and became something else entirely. Not revenge, not rage, but clarity. She thought she had erased everything. She thought she had left no trail, but she left me just enough to follow her, enough to understand the full truth. And that was when I knew what I had to do. I didn't pack a bag, didn't call anyone, didn't leave a note. I just took a breath, locked the door behind me, and left the house that suddenly felt like a stranger's skin. The emails had given me the name of the hotel, a seaside town, 3 hours away, small, discreet, the kind of place people go when they want to disappear without questions. It was almost poetic, really. We used to talk about escaping to the coast, about breathing ocean, air and starting over. I guess she just decided to start over, without me. The drive felt unreal. Time bent around the curves in the road and my thoughts folded in on themselves. Looping images of her smile, the way her hand used to find mine in the dark, how we used to finish each other's sentences. Was hard to hold on to that version of her when the facts were screaming something else. But love doesn't evaporate cleanly. It burns off in pieces. I got to the hotel just after dusk. Gray sky, wet pavement, a faint scent of salt in the air. I didn't go to the front desk. Didn't need to. I already knew the room number. The confirmation email from 2 days ago had the suite listed, booked under her name with a note. No housekeeping. Privacy appreciated. I stood in the hallway for a long moment. My heart wasn't racing. Strangely, it was calm. Focused. Like something inside me had stopped shaking. I didn't knock. I didn't need to. The keycard I used was from our last anniversary, a duplicate we'd forgotten to return from a weekend getaway she claimed to love. She'd said, "Let's keep it, just in case we ever want to come back." I held on to it, a sentimental relic. Turns out, it opened more than just a memory. The door clicked open and there she was, standing near the window, hair wet from the shower, a wine glass in hand, smiling at someone just out of view. That someone stepped into the light. He was younger than me, taller, that effortless kind of attractive that doesn't question itself. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway. Her laughter once, soft and reserved around me, was suddenly free and wide. For a moment, I said nothing. I just watched. Watched them exist in this world they'd built on what they thought was buried. A world bought with the pieces of the one we once shared. Then she saw me. Her body went still. Glass slipped from her hand, hit the floor. Didn't shatter, just rolled into the silence. Her mouth moved before sound came out. "How did you—" I didn't answer her, not yet. Because I wasn't here to scream. I wasn't here to beg. I was here for something else. Something quieter. Something deeper. Because she forgot one fatal detail. And now, I was about to use it. She stared at me like I was a ghost, like something she thought she'd buried suddenly walked back into the room. But I was no ghost. I was the man she underestimated. The man she left behind without checking if he could still feel the weight of every lie. The guy beside her took a step forward, unsure whether to puff up his chest or shrink into the wallpaper. He opened his mouth, probably to say something smug or stupid, but I cut through the silence first. "I'm not here to fight." My voice surprised me. Calm. Low. Too steady for what I was feeling. "I'm here to give you a choice." She blinked. Once, then twice. That little crease appeared between her eyebrows. The one I used to gently kiss when she was overthinking, and for a second, just a second, I could see the woman I thought I knew flicker behind her eyes, but she said nothing. So I walked over to the table and placed a printed folder on it. Thick, clean, everything cataloged. "Do you remember that old account?" I asked, almost casually. She didn't answer, didn't have to. I watched her shoulders tense like a violin string pulled too tight. "I never closed it," I continued. "And every time you moved money, every time you bought a room or sent a wire transfer to him," I tilted my head toward the silent man who looked like he was trying to melt into the carpet. "I got a record of it. Every transaction, every timestamp, every IP address." Her mouth parted, but no sound came. "I know about the money you funneled through his name to make it untraceable. I know the offshore account you tried to open. I know the phone you thought was clean. The one I saw in your bag 2 months ago." Her voice finally cracked the silence. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to see who you really were when you thought I wasn't watching." She stepped back, bumping into the edge of the table. Her eyes welled, but I didn't move. Didn't flinch. "You don't have to go to prison," I said softly. "That's your choice. But here's mine. You return every cent. Every single one. You walk away with nothing. No more lies. No more games. You disappear from my life. Both of you. And you never come back." "And if I don't?" she whispered. I handed her a second folder. "This goes to the police, and to your employer, and to your mother, and to the media." Her lover looked at her now, and I could see it clearly. Fear. Not for me, but for himself. He hadn't signed up for this part. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said. her voice cracking now. "I know," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "That's what makes it worse." She collapsed into the chair behind her, covering her face with trembling hands. And for a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But I remembered the silence of our kitchen, the empty drawer, the coldness of the note that didn't even say my name. I turned to leave, but as I reached the door, she asked the one question I hadn't prepared for. "Did you ever really love me?" I didn't look back. "More than you deserved." And then I stepped out into the night. But this wasn't over. Not yet. Because in digging into her secrets, I uncovered something she didn't even know she was hiding. The night air outside the hotel hit like a confession. Wet, electric, full of things that hadn't been said. I walked without a plan. Just moved. Feet on autopilot. Heart still somewhere in that room, replaying her face. The way her mask cracked. How her voice trembled when she finally realized I hadn't come unarmed. But something kept tugging at me, even as I left. A detail. A shadow. Something in her reaction that wasn't shock, like it was confusion. She hadn't known I could track her. But there was more. She looked afraid, yes. But not only of what I knew. There was something else buried beneath. Her panic, a question behind her eyes she couldn't ask in front of him. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't the only one lying. Back in the car, I opened the folder again. This time, not looking at what she'd done, but who she'd done it with. The man. His name was all over the wire transfers, but something about it had felt off. Too neat. Too clean. I pulled up one of the IDs I had traced, one she'd used to open a secondary account. It listed him as the beneficiary, and then I remembered something small, a slip she made months ago during one of our quieter arguments. She said, "At least I'm not the only one keeping secrets." At the time, I dismissed it as a jab. Now, I realized it was a breadcrumb, so I ran a background check. And then another. And another. And what I found chilled me. He wasn't who he claimed to be. The name on the bank account didn't match any official ID. The passport number used in their hotel reservation, flagged as fake, and the photos she sent him money under, they were all taken from a staged social profile, scrubbed clean of real connections. He was running a long con, not just on me, on her too. She didn't betray me with him. She was manipulated, pulled in, fed lines, sold promises, and used as a pawn. She thought she was escaping with someone. She was really just another mark in his game, and that was the twist she hadn't seen coming. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the screen. Heart pounding in a different rhythm now. Not with grief, not with anger, but with something colder. Resolve. I could walk away now. I had what I wanted. I could take the files to the authorities and disappear, finally free of the wreckage. But something in me wouldn't let go. Not yet. Because for all she had done, for all she had taken, she was now just as trapped as I had been. And maybe, just maybe, the final move wasn't mine to make alone. I didn't sleep that night. Sleep felt like something that belonged to another version of me. The man before the storm. By sunrise, I was back in the town, sitting across the street from the hotel, watching, waiting. I didn't know what I was going to say. I just knew I had to say something, because now, the woman who tried to ruin me was being ruined by someone even worse. At 7:12 a.m., she came out alone. No suitcase, no makeup. Just that red coat. The same one from the day we met. It looked heavier now, like regret had soaked into the fabric. She didn't see me until I stepped out of the car and called her name. Her eyes widened. She froze. "Don't run," I said. Not a threat. A request. She didn't. We walked in silence, found a bench near the cliffside. The sea below was gray and endless. She looked smaller now, not in size, in spirit, like something inside her had cracked during the night and never found its shape again. "I know," I said. She turned to me, barely holding herself together. You know what? That he's not who you think he is. Her breath caught. I watched it happen. The exact second truth clicked inside her. Her shoulders sagged. Her face crumpled. She laughed, bitter, broken. I thought I was the one using you, she whispered. Then I thought I was using him. But all along, she buried her face in her hands. I let her sit with it. Let the weight of it all settle on her shoulders. No comfort. No revenge. Just reality. I gave him everything, she said. Everything. I took from you. I handed to him. I know, I replied. And in the silence that followed, something strange passed between us. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but recognition of pain, of damage, of the parts of ourselves we don't like to look at. Why are you here? She asked finally. Why not just disappear and leave me to rot? I looked out at the water. Because I wanted you to see what it feels like, I said quietly. To lose everything you thought was real. To be used. To be betrayed. She didn't answer. What could she say? But her next words. I didn't expect. I want to fix it. I turned to her. Fix what? All of it. I want to make it right. With you, with the money, with what I helped him do. I want to bring him down. I don't want to be this person anymore. And I saw it then. Maybe not honesty, but desperation. The kind that only comes when someone finally sees the edge they've been walking. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't lying this time. I leaned forward, looked her in the eyes. Then we do it my way. No more secrets, no more half-truths. She nodded, but deep down, I knew this wasn't just about taking him down. This was about us, the damage, the wreckage, and whether anything human could survive it. The days that followed were a strange kind of war zone. Not the kind with guns or shouting, but the quiet battles fought in whispered conversations and wary glances. We were two broken people, trying to patch a wreckage neither of us fully understood. But in that fragility, there was an odd kind of truth. Sharper than any accusation, deeper than any resentment. She showed me things, files, messages, even a few recordings she had, hidden away, pieces of the puzzle that revealed the real scope of the con. Not just her, not just us, but dozens of others, caught in the same invisible trap. And as I listened, the weight in my chest shifted. Anger didn't disappear, but it softened, just enough to let something else creep in. A strange, fragile empathy. I started to see her, not just as the woman who fled with our savings, but as someone desperate and afraid. Someone caught between the past she tried to escape and the future she was terrified to face. We planned carefully, every move deliberate, every risk calculated. The man who had manipulated us was smart, slippery, a master of shadows. But we had something he didn't. A shared past, a shared pain, and a determination born from losing everything. Late nights blurred into early mornings, coffee cups piled up like trophies of war. We tracked him through digital breadcrumbs, tracing his network, closing in inch by inch. And slowly, the man who thought he was untouchable began to falter. But the closer we got, the more I realized something else was happening. Between the planning and the plotting, something in me was changing. The raw edges of betrayal started to dull. The line between her and us began to blur. And beneath the rubble of hurt and lies, I found a reluctant kind of hope. Maybe this was what surviving felt like. Not forgetting, not forgiving, but moving forward, together, or apart. And as we prepared for the final step, I felt it. The weight of everything hanging in the balance. Because the end of this story wouldn't just be about justice. It would be about who we chose to become after. The night we made our move, the air was thick with tension, the kind that presses against your skin and makes your breath shallow. We weren't just chasing a man anymore. We were chasing closure, redemption, something that felt like a second chance. I remember the cold crunch of gravel beneath our feet as we approached the rundown warehouse he used as a base. The smell of damp metal and stale smoke filled the air, like the ghosts of broken promises trapped in the shadows. She stayed close, quieter than I'd ever seen her, eyes sharp and alert. I caught a glimpse of that old spark, the one buried beneath layers of regret and fear. We had rehearsed this 100 times, but the moment was raw and unpredictable. Every sound felt magnified, a dropped tool, a creak in the floor, the faint hum of a distant radio. Inside, we found him. The man who had twisted our lives like a puppet master, sitting behind a cluttered desk, unaware we were there. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face, quickly replaced by a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "You're braver than I thought," he said. But I didn't answer. Instead, I laid the evidence on the table. Documents, transaction records, screenshots, all the proof he'd hoped to bury. She watched silently, the tension coiling in her jaw, the weight of years in her eyes. He laughed, cold, bitter, defeated. "You think this will stop me? This is just a game to me." But it wasn't a game anymore. It was justice. We called the police. We watched him taken away, the smirk replaced by fear. As the sirens faded into the night, I turned to her. For the first time in months, there was no wall between us. "I'm sorry," she said, "not for the theft, not for the lies, but for the pain she'd caused." I nodded. Me too. And in that moment, something shifted. We didn't know what the future held. We didn't know if we could rebuild what was broken. But for the first time, we felt something rare. Possibility. The scars would remain, a reminder of everything lost and everything learned. But maybe, just maybe, they would also mark the beginning of something new. The weeks that followed were quieter, a strange calm after the storm. I found myself sitting alone one evening, the fading light casting long shadows across the walls of our empty apartment. It smelled faintly of her perfume, the one she wore only on special occasions, the scent both comforting and painful. I ran my fingers over the faded photos on the shelf, snapshots of a life that felt like a different universe now. A universe where trust wasn't a fragile thread, waiting to snap. She came in then, quietly, like she was afraid to disturb the silence. We didn't talk at first. Words felt too heavy, too uncertain. But as the night deepened, the walls came down, piece by piece. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said softly. "I just want to be honest now. No more running, no more hiding." And I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe in the possibility of healing, even if it meant walking through the wreckage together. We began to rebuild. Not the life we had, but something new. A fragile truce forged in pain and the barest flicker of hope. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about the man who tried to tear us apart. And I realize he wasn't the villain in the story. We were. We were the ones who let silence and secrets grow until they became a chasm impossible to cross. But maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. That sometimes the real enemy isn't the other person. It's the parts of ourselves we refuse to face. The road ahead isn't clear, it never will be. But for the first time, I'm ready to walk it, with my eyes open and a heart willing to risk, because in the end, that's all any of us can do. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for your time. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe. It truly helps the channel. Click the video on screen, and I'll see you there.